slammed into each other as well. Go Myung-hwan looked at Park Hye-jin next to him. So, shouldn't we lend assistance here? Park Hye-jin shook her head. This isn't a fight where we can butt in, you know. This was a battle where huge black monsters were swinging their giant claws. The destroyed black soldiers were regenerating to their original state in the blink of an eye. And the gleaming blades and the arrows fired from the upper rank monsters, white phantoms, were chaotically flying around in the snowy field. So, what can a rank B or C do in this place? Indeed, the only thing they were permitted to do here was to pray. Jin-woo gasped out, as expected of a boss from the high-ranking dungeon. The fight looked to be even from the side, but Jin-woo was getting cut and sliced constantly all over his body. Would he be able to last 3 minutes at this rate? His MP was also rapidly depleting away as his soldiers constantly regenerated. Finally, the magic soldiers managed to finish their chants. A ball of flames larger than a volleyball flew in the midst of the white phantoms. Kaboom! That was the power of the leveled-up magic soldiers in full display. Awakened by the resounding eardrum-shaking explosion, Kim Cheol regained his consciousness and opened his eyes. Kim Cheol raised his head to look. Clang, clang. His blurry vision picked up on the sight of white phantoms fighting against the unknown black soldiers. What the hell is going on here? He couldn't figure out what happened while he blacked out, but at least he knew very well why he was lying on the ground like this. The hand that slapped him in the back of his head, and the voice that came from behind him. That voice definitely belonged to Seong Jin-woo. Now that he had regained his bearing, the sense of shame and rage bubbled over like crazy, and the ends of his fingertips trembled. How fortunate that he could feel the hilt of his sword. If he was surrounded by the white phantoms, then he'd not get out of here alive. In that case, he must. I'll kill that beast-starred Seong Jin-woo with my own hands. His maddened eyes finally spotted the back of Seong Jin-woo. There he was. He was too busy fighting a white phantom and wasn't paying any attention to his rear. This was his chance. Kim Cheol stood up right away. After sensing Kim Cheol running towards him, Jin-woo laughed out inwardly in elation. Right, if it's you. Kim Cheol ran with all his might and after taking aim at Jin-woo's neck, swung the sword hard. Die. In front, the boss. From behind, Kim Cheol. Even though he was stuck in a seemingly dangerous situation, Jin-woo still managed to shout out, Ygritte. As if he'd been waiting for that call, Ygritte jumped out from his shadow immediately and easily deflected Kim Cheol's sword. Clang. No. Kim Cheol's bloodshot eyes opened wider. However, even before he could say anything, Ygritte's sword pierced deeply into his chest. Stab. The blade ran straight through his chest and emerged from his back. I knew Kim Cheol would act this way. This fool was someone who didn't think about anything in depth, and only acted according to his emotions. They had been together only for a short while, but that was enough for Jin-woo to figure this guy out. Kim Cheol glared at Jin-woo, and with that, Kim Cheol breathed his last. As Ygritte stepped up to delay the boss, Jin-woo issued an order to the shadow of the dead Kim Cheol. Rise up. When that happened, accompanied by a heavy, somber cry, a huge hand emerged from the shadow. The Black Knight that emerged from Kim Cheol's shadow was far bigger and sturdier than the original version, and it even carried a huge war hammer in one hand as well. The other hand held a shield as tall as a grown man, and the overall impression this guy gave off was truly oppressive and threatening. Kim Cheol was a muscular man, but this shadow is just too over the top. Even though it was an urgent situation, Jin-woo couldn't help but leak out a gasp of admiration. All right, the name. Jin-woo sneaked a glance to his side. Perhaps finding the battle quite tough, Ygritte was having a hard time right now, being pushed around by the boss. Currently, he was barely buying enough time by relying on his cheat-like regenerative ability. Slice. Ygritte's arm was sliced off, then. I don't have much time to waste here. A name, was it? Should he go with whatever? Maybe, Kim Cheol. Jin-woo immediately shook his head. To call an undead with a name it used while it was still alive. That just didn't sit well with him. Right, his name was Kim Cheol. Cheol, so iron, it is. The name had been decided. As soon as Jin-woo thought of that name, it was bestowed on the newly birthed Shadow Knight. Jin-woo pointed to the boss. Iron. Iron leaned back and roared out loudly. What was that? Several messages popped up in his view. An aggro skill. Kim Cheol was actually a rank tanker, so, quite obviously, he possessed a high-level aggro skill, and the Shadow Knight extracted from his shadow, Iron, had retained that skill in full and was able to use it no problem. The head of the boss swiveled towards Iron. Although it could have chosen to finish Ygritte off right in front of its eyes, the boss simply pounced on Iron as if it had been hypnotized by a ghost or some such. The boss was still preoccupied with Iron. and seizing this chance, Jinwoo and Ygritte's combined assault began on the boss. Park Hye-jin became utterly speechless as the unbelievable spectacle unfolded right before her eyes. What she was seeing right now proved to be too unrealistic, too outlandish. From her side, Han Song-yi asked her with a timid voice, "Do all fights of hunters look like that?" She must have been frightened silly, because Han Song-yi's voice was trembling noticeably. Park Hye-jin replied to her, sounding helpless as well. "If that were the case, then I'd never have earned my license, you know." Go Myung-hwan asked next, looking utterly dazed out of his mind. "Could it be that we are dreaming right now?" Park Hye-jin looked back at the battlefield where the monsters and the black somethings were having a chaotic throwdown, and spat out a long sigh. The poison fang of Kasaka stabbed into the boss's shoulder. With the increased levels of the enemies he'd been facing lately, the additional effects of the poison fang of Kasaka failed to activate properly more often than not. Still, inflicting injuries was a good thing in a fight. Nice. The boss's agile movements were being hampered gradually due to the increasing number of wounds being inflicted on its body. The smile had disappeared from the boss's face a long time ago. The boss had been dodging the combined attacks of Jinwoo, Ygritte and Iron rather freely until then. But now, it was quite obviously running out of breath. Just a little bit more. Iron suddenly bear-hugged the boss. Now, when Jinwoo gave the signal, Ygritte rapidly retreated. Jinwoo too quickly stepped back. The boss's eyes widened in confusion. "What are you trying?" Before he could finish, the magic soldiers completed the explosion spells and they rained down on Iron's position. For the first time ever, the boss spat out a sharp cry of pain. The beastard twisted its body around, and Iron's arms fell off. Grit. The boss's enraged, murderous eyes were now firmly fixed on Jinwoo. Seeing this, Jinwoo could only feel admiration towards the boss once more. Even with such a heavy wound, it can still exhibit that much strength, as expected of a high-level dungeon's boss. Unfortunately for it, the scale had tilted away from it some time ago. Jinwoo used stealth and dash skills to close the distance to the boss and stabbed the poison fang of Kasaka deeply into the beastard's waist. The boss's eyes widened considerably. However, the boss still managed to grab Jinwoo's wrist even in the midst of all this. It was not that hard to see the boss's desire to not go down without a fight from its crazed eyes. Just as the boss raised its dagger above its head to stab at Jinwoo, Jinwoo simply smirked. At the same time, a huge warhammer slammed into the head of the boss. Slam! The boss's face crashed into the snowy ground. Behind the boss, Iron was raising his hammer up high again, both of his arms already fully regenerated. The huge hammer flew down again. Splat! Ygritte was getting ready to attack, but then sheathed his sword back into the scabbard attached to his waist. Jinwoo also stored his daggers back inside the inventory, and the expected messages popped up right away. "It's finally over." Jinwoo sighed grandly in relief. What a hard-fought victory this was. He was about to take a breather, but then saw Iron and his eyes went extra round in surprise. Hey, you can stop now." Jinwoo hurriedly stopped Iron. He was about to smash down with his hammer again, but finally stayed his hands. Perhaps it resembled the original too much, because the guy turned out to be a bit simple in the head like the original. Meanwhile, the boss's corpse had been pummeled into a meat paste already. However, its shadow isn't affected, so it's fine. Jinwoo smirked deeply. Finally, the reward for this incredibly hard battle, the one he'd been salivating over, was right by his feet, waiting to be taken. Jinwoo issued his order. "Rise up." It was now 3 a.m. The facial expressions of 4 men waiting around the red gate were, as expected, not so good. Unable to endure any longer, Hyan Kaichial finally opened his mouth. "Guildmaster, we'll remain here and wait, so how about going home first, sir? My guild members are trapped in there, so how can I even think about going home to relax now?" It was here that On Song-min's eye widened. "Huh? Look, the red gate." Hyan Kaichial and Ju Sung-chan also discovered an oddity with the red gate. The red gate is opening up. The dungeon's been cleared. There are people coming out. Baek Yun-ho clenched his fists tightly. That Kim Cheol. Did he manage to pull it off? Everyone waiting there hurriedly rushed towards the front of the gate. Baek Yun-ho, unable to hide his excitement, began searching for the leader of this team, Kim Cheol. However, even though all of the survivors came out, the big guy couldn't be seen. This can't be right. The one who had been insisting on believing in Kim Cheol. Ju Sung-chan's previously confident attitude was gone now, and his expression was getting warped as well. After spotting Jinwoo walking along with Han Song-yi right behind the others, On Song-min's face was quickly filled up with a huge smile. "I thought as much." It was such a noticeable contrast from the face of Ju Sung-chan. However, his smile also faded away quickly. When 5 people, including Xiang Jinwu, walked out from the gate, the portal to another world slowly disappeared from their view. It can't be. Is this everyone? Jinwu nodded his head, looking rather exhausted. Haiyan Kaichiol had asked that question, and after getting that silent answer, his expression hardened instantly. How can this be? Haiyan Kaichiol's eyes teared up, and he reluctantly began crossing out the names of the deceased off the member list. This was a terrible job, but it had to be done regardless. Baek Yun-ho had been staring at this in a daze, before gasping out in sheer shock and disbelief. Only the lower-ranked hunters returned. Never mind the A rank, only a single rank B survived. Such a thing should not happen. Just what on earth happened inside that dungeon? Let's go. I'll take you home. Jinwu was about to lead Han Song-yi and leave the location, but Baek Yun-ho reached out and grabbed his wrist first. Excuse me. Wait. Slap. Jinwu fiercely shook off that hand. Baek Yun-ho's eyes sharpened immediately. We need to talk for a second here. Jinwu turned around. I'm too tired. If you have questions, you should ask your own guild members. Baek Yun-ho couldn't hold back and revealed his identity. I'm Baek Yun-ho, the guild master of the White Tiger. Jinwu's eyes remained cold, however. So what? Being on the receiving end of Jinwu's cold response, Baek Yun-ho's eyes suddenly transformed to that of a monster's. No, they completely resembled a beast now, instead. We lost 9 guild members through this incident. As the master, I have the right to ask you a couple of questions regarding this matter. This was no longer a request. It was an order, or even a threat. Didn't matter what anyone thought of his words. He was not planning to let Jinwu go that easily here. But then, Jinwu too angrily glared back. He was not being cowered by the intense hostile aura oozing out in full force from the rank S hunter. Baek Yun-ho, I rescued 3 of your people. If you're really their leader, shouldn't you be saying thanks to me first? It was Baek Yun-ho who had to withdraw his threatening aura first, as he was bombarded with this incredible pressure emanating from Jinwu. Besides that, what he said was logical as well. Baek Yun-ho couldn't argue against the point raised. I apologize. Baek Yun-ho lowered his head. Seeing this, Jinwu turned around once more to leave. Han Song-yi, let's get going. Okay. Han Song-yi carefully studied the mood of this place and followed after Jinwu. The two of them got on the van and not too long after left the location. This doesn't make any sense. Baek Yun-ho's thoughts were now in complete disarray. He quickly ran towards the sole surviving upper-rank hunter, Park Hye-jin. Excuse me, Miss Park Hye-jin. She had been trying to warm herself up with the cup of hot tea Haiyan Kaichiol had handed over. She raised her head to meet Baek Yun-ho's gaze. What is the matter with that guy? Why was he so downbeat like that? Indeed, that man had probably gone through an unimaginable hell and finally managed to escape from the Red Gate. Yet why was his attitude so murderous? Park Hye-jin shook her head, displaying her own confusion. I also don't know, sir. After killing the boss, he stood in front of the dead body and shouted something out 3 times, and after that, he's been like that. He was okay until then. Park Hye-jin looked at Go Myung-hwan and Yun Kaiju. The 2 men nodded their heads simultaneously. What a strange man. Baek Yun-ho muttered to himself as he stared helplessly at the street Jinwu had disappeared in. On Song-min saw the state his boss was in, and became incredibly nervous as if he had done something wrong instead. My apologies, Guild Master. I'm sure he's like that because he's just exhausted. He's not a bad person, I assure you. At least, I believe he's not. No, that's not the problem. Pardon me. Baek Yun-ho turned around to stare squarely at On Song-min. Why haven't you scouted that man already? On Song-min couldn't hide his fluster, but it wasn't strong enough to best the fluster Baek Yun-ho had felt just now. Against me. Baek Yun-ho recalled Jinwu's fierce glare and could only nervously swallow his dry saliva. Gulp. Abruptly, he thought that, were he to fight that man, he'd have to resolve himself to lose an arm or 2. Maybe even worse than that. Quickly figuring out what Baek Yun-ho meant, On Song-min hurriedly replied, We're doing our very best, sir. That is clearly not enough. Baek Yun-ho's eyes began to sparkle rather dangerously. Xiang Jinwu. Indeed, Chief On's discerning eyes were on the money again. From today onwards, you'll receive all the resources you need. You must bring that man into our guild, no matter what. On the way home, Jinwu was busy licking his lips in unhappiness as he drove the van. Tisk, was it because the gap between his stat values and the extraction targets were too great? What a disappointment it was, but his extraction attempts ended in failure. What a waste, but there's nothing I can do now. Jin Woo's hand left the steering wheel for a little while as a dagger with an elegant, flowing, arched blade appeared in his grip. Rarity A. Type Dagger. A dagger used by the great warrior Baruka. Weight reduction magic has been applied to it, allowing the wielder's movements to become even more agile than before. Attack plus 110. Agility plus 10. Well, he didn't walk away completely empty-handed. This was the dagger the boss had been using. There were two, but one of them was broken, so he threw that away and took the remaining dagger. The Baruka's dagger A. Not only did it feature high attacking power, but it also raised his agility too. On that front alone, there was no need to compare it to Night Killer, a dagger ranked B he paid handsomely for. Never mind the rank C Poison Fang of Kasaka. Its rarity alone was at a 2. This was probably one of the best weapons to replace the Poison Fang of Kasaka that had been losing its effectiveness lately. I like the way it feels in my hand, too. While he was mulling over the things that happened inside the Red Gate, they had arrived before Han Song-yi's home. Screech. She had been sitting in the passenger seat without saying a word, as if she wasn't even there in the first place. As soon as the van came to a stop, she climbed out of the seat and bowed her head. Drive safely. I will. Good night. Han Song-yi turned around to leave. Seeing her slumped shoulders and powerless gait, it seemed that the original goal of this trip had been met, one way or the other. Well, although things did get a lot complicated, I was trying to change her mind anyway. It was rather likely that she wouldn't try to become a hunter in the future. It'd be the same story for anybody if their first dungeon experience just so happened to be a Red Gate. He nodded his head in satisfaction and was about to start the van again. But then, the passenger side door was abruptly opened from the outside. Jin Woo shifted his gaze. Han Song-yi had returned to the van and was holding onto the door. What's the matter with her? His curiosity only lasted for a little while. Han Song-yi bowed her head deeply again, this time looking much calmer than before. Thank you for everything, Appa. He only now realized that, from some time ago, the honorific she used to address him changed from Aujasi to Appa. Sure thing. Don't mention it. Excuse me. Tomorrow. No, see you later. Later. Before he could ask her for clarification, Han Song-yi hurriedly ran away. After her back disappeared from his view did he realize what she was talking about. From today onwards, he'd be teaming up with Yu Jin-ho again to mop up the rest of the raids. Han Song-yi was a raid team member, so of course, they'd see each other again later on. So she meant that, What a relief that was, though. His plan would have been affected pretty badly if Han Song-yi refused to come out of her house because of the trauma from this incident. This worked out for the best, and now he would use his shadow soldiers to clear out the rank C dungeons even faster than before. He felt utterly confident of clearing up the remaining raids in the shortest time possible. Also, he couldn't wait to see how Yu Jin-ho would react after witnessing his shadow soldiers in action, too. The next morning, Jin Woo yawned grandly as he stepped out of the apartment's foyer. He only closed his eyes for a bit, but hell, it was time to meet up with Yu Jin-ho already. Hi Nim, good morning. He heard the familiar energetic voice greeting him. You don't even have a car, so how did you get here? The raid team's favorite ride. Mr. Van had been commandeered by Jin Woo last night, and was currently parked neatly in the apartment's parking lot nearby. I caught a taxi, Hyung Nim. A taxi, and here he was, thinking of going to fetch the kid instead. Oh no, it's fine, Hyung Nim. I'm the one asking for your help, so it's only right that I'm the one driving you around, at least. Yu Jin-ho grinned happily and replied, Hyung Nim, let's get going. Hold on. Jin Woo pulled out his phone and dialed someone. There's someone we should take along, as well. Excuse me. Who? Hey, Song-yi. It's me. Meet us at the parking lot. We'll go to the gate together. Song-yi. Could it be that Song-yi? As soon as Jin Woo ended the call, Yu Jin-ho asked him, Hyung Nim, the person you want to take with us, is she that high schooler in our team? Jin Woo nodded his head. Han Song-yi lived near here, and their destination was the same, so there wasn't any reason to go there separately, now was there. Unfortunately, Yu Jin-ho didn't see it that way. Han Song-yi, the rather cute high school girl with her hair tied up in a bun. He already knows her number, and can talk to her in such a friendly manner, too. Could Hyung Nim and her have formed a much deeper relationship than meets the eye? For sure, Hyung Nim was a cool guy even from another man's perspective. While Hyung Nim wouldn't be interested at all, it'd not be a strange thing for an impressionable schoolgirl to fall for a man like that. Yu Jin-ho nodded his head. If this was the case, then there was something he had to make sure right away. Hyung Nim, should I call Miss Han's sister-in-law from now on? Did this guy fall off the bed and hit his head or something? Jin Woo's crumpled expression was implicitly implying that, even if Yu Jin-ho was not too quick on the uptake, he should still be able to figure that one out pretty easily. You two aren't dating. She's a friend of my little sister. Oh, so that's what happened. Yu Jin-ho finally understood the situation. He didn't even know what was going on, yet he was thinking of calling that girl his sister-in-law. His face reddened up considerably. Soon enough, Han Song-yi came to the parking lot. Not only that, she was noticeably better dressed than how she was usually. Seeing this, Yu Jin-ho grinned slightly. Yep, she's definitely a teen girl, wanting to look nice in front of the brother of her friend and all. As the leader of the raid team, he was thinking of praising the fellow raid team members' choice of wardrobe. But then, Jin-woo greeted her first. Did you get some sleep? In that instant, Yu Jin-ho's expression froze stiff. Han Song-yi smiled and shook her head. I couldn't catch a wink. I'm sure you're still exhausted, so get some rest in the van. Listening to the two young people's conversation, the thought process of Yu Jin-ho became more and more messed up. Han Song-yi asked Jin-woo this time. What about you, Appa? Did you get some sleep? Well, only for a little bit. It was already 4 a.m. by the time I got back home. Anyway, well, true that. Night. Couldn't catch a wink. Still exhausted. 4 a.m. by the time he got back home. Just as Yu Jin-ho's panic state was morphing into a full-blown freak-out. What are you doing, Yu Jin-ho? Well, Hyung-nim. Well, the thing is, this Han Song-yi is still a minor, Hyung-nim. Okay, so, never mind, Hyung-nim. Truly now, Hyung-nim was a man among men. Yu Jin-ho was deeply impressed by Jin-woo, who didn't care about the glares of the public and thought that, indeed, he's extraordinary. He also began to reflect on his foolish ways of trying to apply the standards of the regular people on Hyung-nim. As soon as he stepped foot inside the dungeon, Jin-woo took in a deep breath. After being confined to an open field type dungeon for a few days, the air inside the cavern type dungeon felt new and refreshing. The floor of the cave began rising up here, there, and everywhere. Humanoid monsters with skins made out of rocks appeared. Yu Jin-ho quickly recalled their name. Hyung-nim, it's the Stoneman. In the blink of an eye, the head of the Stoneman in front of the pack rolled to the ground. Jin-woo looked at the Baruka's dagger and smiled in satisfaction. Time to summon his shadow soldiers. Oopsie, Jin-woo facepalmed and turned around. I forgot he was here with me. He got way too excited and completely forgot about Yu Jin-ho for a moment there. While plopped on his ass, Yu Jin-ho pointed his trembling finger at the shadow soldiers standing right in front of him. It's a bit complicated to explain. Well, it's my skill. You can summon these things as your skill. Jin-woo nodded his head. Yu Jin-ho's jaw remained slack and didn't want to close. Him and Hyung-nim had entered dungeons together 11 times already. He thought that he wouldn't get shocked anymore, but he was proven wrong once more. A rank C dungeon was destroyed in no time at all, in other words. Jin-woo exclaimed in admiration. At this rate, we might get to mop up the rest of the raids pretty quickly. As soon as the battle ended, the shadow soldiers retrieved the magic crystals and stood before Jin-woo in orderly columns. Yu Jin-ho hesitated slightly, before opening his mouth with some difficulty. Can I be the one to retrieve the magic stones? Why, I'm kinda upset because it feels like my role's been stolen by these guys, Hyung-nim. Jin-woo burst out into a soft chuckle. Yup, this kid really is a weird one. And a day later, Jin-woo finished the 19 raids he had promised Yu Jin-ho. Now that the raids are over, how about we celebrate with a hearty meal? Yu Jin-ho took a look around and pointed towards the empty table by the windows. Can't we sit over there? I'm sorry, sir. That table has been booked already. A large group must have made a booking, because several tables had been brought together. Currently, they were all empty. Yu Jin-ho stared at the empty tables with a rueful expression and shook his head. In the end, the two of them had to occupy the most secluded, out-of-the-way spot in the diner. Yu Jin-ho lowered his head in shame. I'm sorry, Hyung-nim. There's nothing for you to apologize for. I was the one who suggested that we come here anyway. Even still, I should have taken you to a bit better spot than this one. Jin-woo smirked and lightly patted Yu Jin-ho on the shoulder. Don't sweat over such things and enjoy the food, okay? Actually, Jin-woo was inwardly worried about a scion of a keyball finding the taste of such cheap meat to his liking or not. Also, even though I didn't say anything, but well, they filled their glasses with soju, clinked them a little and one-shotted them. Unlike Yu Jin-ho, who was immensely enjoying the bitter taste of soju, Jin-woo could only frown deeply in unhappiness. Hyung-nim, is something wrong? No, it's nothing. Jin-woo could only stare at the empty glass with a bitter expression on his face. He had forgotten one crucial fact about his body, what with him being so busy lately and all. What are you planning to do from now on? When Jin-woo asked in a serious voice, Yu Jin-ho sat upright like a job seeker waiting for his job interview to start. As soon as I complete a simple written test at the Hunters Association, they should issue my guild master license right away. Hyung Nim. I'm planning to negotiate with my father with that license in hand. Determination flooded in Yu Jinho's eyes. He had invested a lot of his own moolah for this purpose, and there was no room to retreat now. Besides, I also made a promise with Hyung Nim, too. The guild building he promised to Jin Woo. That part of the bargain could be upheld only after Yu Jinho successfully persuades his father, Yu Myung Hwan, to install him as the new guild master. On the other hand, Jin Woo was feeling rather liberated. Sure, it'd be nice to get my hands on that 30 billion won building. But well, that would only be an added bonus to him. His real purpose had always been leveling up. While entering all those rank C gates, he had reached a far higher level than he initially bargained for. In other words, he had achieved his goal. And the results of his frantic leveling up spree. One punch from him, and the rank a hunter with a guaranteed annual salary of billions of won, Kim Cheol lost his consciousness. Just like that, at the bare minimum, I can make more money than that guy now. If one possessed excellent abilities, wealth was sure to follow. There was no need to feel nervous at all, and his relaxed mindset could clearly be seen on his demeanor. Jin Woo began reminiscing about the last few days and smiled to himself. It was at this moment that Yu Jinho asked him a question. What are your own plans now, Hyung Nim? Oh, me. Did I ask something that I shouldn't? Yu Jinho thought like this and flinched slightly, but he breathed a sigh of relief after spotting Jin Woo's relaxed expression. I'll be out of reach for a while, actually. There's this place I have to go to, you see. That one sentence caused Yu Jinho's face to harden visibly. After forming an expression of an abandoned puppy, Yu Jinho emptied the soju glass in one go. Tap. He then placed the empty glass on the table, filling it up back to the brim. After knocking back another glass, he began to open his mouth with some difficulty. Hyung Nim, please tell me straight if I've been bothering you. If that's been the case, I shall make sure never to bother you again in the future. This idiot. The moment Jin Woo said that he'd be out of reach, this idiot must have misunderstood his words again. Jin Woo scratched the side of his head and asked a question instead of a proper reply. Hey, Jinho. Yes, Hyung Nim. What do you think of me as? Well, Yu Jinho's eyes rolled around this way, and that as if he couldn't come up with a good enough answer before he raised his head. Hyung Nim, I have a brother who's over 10 years older than me. Jin Woo remembered hearing that from somewhere. My brother doesn't really like me, so I think the time I spent with him is far shorter than what I've spent with you, Hyung Nim. Compared to him, you have saved my life, helped me out with my dream, and... Yu Jinho stared straight at Jin Woo. To me, you're more like my real brother than him, Hyung Nim. He was still a bit scared of Jin Woo, though. Still, he'd never, ever forget these past few days following around Jin Woo for the rest of his life. Indeed, his respect was far greater than fear of Jin Woo at this point. If you see me as your brother, then... Jin Woo smiled deeply. I'll think of you as my younger brother as well. The tip of Yu Jinho's nose reddened and he began to get teary-eyed all of a sudden. If that was all, it'd have been fine. But then, he tried to get closer to Jin Woo out of nowhere. Hyung Nim, I want to give you a big hug. It's fine, right? Hey, you're drunk, dude. Stop it. No, that's not true. Hyung Nim, I've never been this clear-minded in my life before. Hyung Nim, say that with your eyes open, will ya? Soon enough, Yu Jinho fell asleep and the table had quietened down now. What a helpless kid. Jin Woo leaned back on his seat and lightly clicked his tongue. A TV mounted on the wall of the diner was showing a news bulletin. Is it 9 in the evening already? He thought like that and stared at the screen, only to spot someone rather familiar appearing there. Is it true that there was a huge incident during the training of your new recruits? Is it also true that only the lower-ranked hunters returned alive while all the higher-ranked ones had perished? What do you think about the rumor of a mystery person allegedly aiding the survivors during this incident? Lee Kyun-ho was doing his best to ignore the reporters, but in the end, he had no choice but to respond. This incident has been investigated by the association already. It was true that there was an incident, but there was no mystery helper at the scene. No, the White Tiger Guild's proud hunters combined their powers and managed to clear the upper rank dungeon. And many hunters lost their lives or got injured during the process. That is all. Another reporter quickly fired in a follow-up question. If that's the case, why are you forbidding us from interviewing the survivors? Those folks managed to avoid death's doorstep by a hair's breadth. So, why do you wish to speak to those people regarding this deeply traumatic event? That's as far as I'm prepared to answer you people. Lee Kyun-ho made a quick getaway from there after climbing into a car. Jin Woo's eyes remained wide open. A little while ago, somewhere in the eastern United States of America, a shrill scream exploded out inside a certain dungeon. A hunter named James plopped down on his butt. His legs had lost all strength and he could only crawl on the floor to run away. But when he realized that he only managed to corner himself against a wall, despair quickly dyed his expression. Oh dear God. The rank for this dungeon was estimated to be A, and in order to clear this gate, suitable hunters were recruited to form a raid team. However, every single one of them was annihilated. Technically speaking, they weren't dead, but unconscious on the floor, though. I can't believe this. When the raid team entered the dungeon, they could not find a single monster, because there was seemingly no monster inside. A dungeon without monsters. Can such a thing even exist? If that was the case, where did the magic power emission that the measuring equipment had picked up outside the gate come from? The hunters came up with all sorts of theories by themselves. This was already a hard-to-believe phenomenon, yet something even more shocking was waiting for them by the boss room. When they entered it, they did find a single monster, and it looked exactly like a human being. Indeed, there was only one, but from that monster's single attack, every raid team member lost their consciousness. This creature proved to be far, far too powerful for them. Only James had somehow escaped from the boss room. Wait, could it be that all the magic energy emission detected on the outside of the dungeon is coming from that thing alone? The measurement took place far away, from outside the gate itself, yet its magic power was already exceeding the level of a rank A. James shook his head again. That's just F-seeking impossible. But then, this, really now? That lone monster walked out from the darkness and stepped into the light. James began screaming once more after he saw the approaching creature. That hurts my ears, you know. The monster, no, an oriental man with long, unkempt hair and a bushy beard roughly scratched the top of his head. James no longer screamed but began leaking out scared gasps instead. The mystery oriental man stood before James and placed his hands on his waist. What the hell? So, who told you to attack first without warning? I told you that I'm not a monster, but a human being. I'm a human. Unfortunately, James could not understand a single word of this strange language. Naturally, his complexion progressively worsened. The Oriental man stared at the terrified American hunter with a troubled expression on his face. Eventually, he spat out a long, long sigh. Dang it, what a pain, trying to talk to these big-nosed foreigners. In any case, he tried to initiate another conversation one more time. He squatted down low enough to match the American's eye level and did his best to sound as friendly and non-threatening as possible. Hey man. He could recall a few English words. With such a poor grasp in that language, he couldn't really tell if he was making any sense at all, grammar-wise. A Korean. So, he tried to enunciate every word to the best of his ability. I want to go home. An event of an unprecedented scale. A trapped person walked out of a dungeon, alive. The U.S. Hunter Bureau went into overdrive right away. The deputy director of the bureau personally came down to the interview room after hearing this news. Beyond the one-way mirror, he could see an oriental man quietly sitting on a chair, with a pair of handcuffs on his wrists. Is he that man? That's correct, sir. He looks like a regular civilian, doesn't he? Yes, sir. It was as he said. Once that man's unkempt hair and the messy beard were taken care of, his facial features would be that of an average middle-aged oriental male commonly found everywhere. Have you found out his identity yet? He has repeatedly stated that he's a Korean hunter. South Korea. Yes, sir. How can a South Korean hunter come out of a dungeon on the other side of the world? He says that he was trapped inside the dungeon for the past 10 years after the gate closed on him. And when he reopened his eyes, he's in America. Is that it? That's what he'd been saying until now, sir. The deputy director massaged his forehead. How was he to explain this to the director? He felt a migraine beginning its vicious assault on his head. If that's the case, then what are you guys waiting for? Why aren't you in there trying to get more information out of him? Sir, we're currently focusing on the possibility of this man being a monster who possesses a human's memories instead. Okay, so, if it suddenly reveals its true intentions during the interview process, the entirety of Washington could be in danger. That made sense. A raid team consisting of several rank A hunters proved to be utterly helpless against that man. After all, they could not afford to be careless here. There is a rank S hunter who can converse in Korean residing nearby. The deputy director's expression brightened. He was none other than the deputy director of the Hunter Bureau. He had memorized back to front the list of all rank S hunters living in the States already. Mr. H. Wang. Is he coming here? Yes, sir. One of the main hunters of the Scavenger Guild, H. Wang Dong-soo. If he were to make a report to the higher-ups, he at least needed to know the subject's name. What was the name of that man? It was a difficult-to-pronounce name, that's for sure. The section chief confirmed it on the report submitted to him by one of his underlings and spoke up. His name is Seong-il H1, a hunter from South Korea. H1 Dong-soo had no time for such things as mercy, especially if it was against monsters. He lost his parents to a dungeon break many years ago and grew up with only his older brother as the sole surviving family member. That was why when he awakened as a rank S, he knew this was his heaven-sent opportunity. The opportunity to rip apart and kill as many monsters as I can. Perhaps that was the reason why the glare of H1 Dong-soo as he entered the interview room was icier than usual. A man who came out from a dungeon. Even the magic energy wavelength this man emitted apparently had a similar pattern to that of a monster. If a monster is pretending to be a human, then he'd kill this abominable creature right here, right now. His glare met the man's gaze. They silently exchanged their gazes. H1 Dong-soo put the file with this man's information down on the table. It'll be better for you to cooperate with me. One word from me will determine how others will see you, a human or a monster. Got that? Understood. Before he got started, though, a deeply personal question floated up in H1 Dong-soo's head. His older brother who died inside the dungeon. Was there any possibility that H1 Dong-seok could return alive? He wanted to know about that first. Is there any chance of other hunters returning from a dungeon, just as you have? The man shook his head. H1 Dong-soo's brows quivered just then. How can you be so sure? Because I'm well aware of the reason why I came back. The reason? What is it? Let me ask you something before I answer that. I'll be the one asking questions here. H1 Dong-soo's eyes narrowed to a slit. However, the man continued on with what he wanted to say regardless. The gates, monsters, and dungeon breaks. How much do you know about them? If this man had asked a stupid question, H1 Dong-soo might have used force to shut this man up right away. But he couldn't do that right now, because that question was something that countless tried to answer ever since the first gate opened and awakened people began appearing 10 years ago. This very moment could be when the answer finally revealed itself. Deputy Director. Shush. The agents of the Hunter Bureau all nervously swallowed their saliva as they stared into the one-way mirror. H1 Dong-soo asked, "Are you saying that you know? Dungeons, gates, monsters. All these are merely preludes to a true war about to happen soon. And recently, a being that will become the greatest calamity ever seen has opened its eyes. So, the reason why you returned here is, in order to stop that calamity. And what is, or who is, this greatest calamity ever seen?" "That, I can't tell you." H1 Dong-soo smirked derisively. "A man who came here to stop a calamity can't talk about what it is. I don't know what that thing could be. But surely, rather than trying to stop it all by yourself, wouldn't it be better to work together with others?" The man shook his head. "The number of people means nothing when facing this being. Doesn't matter whether lots of amateurs decide to work together or not. They will only become its prey, and become its pawns instead. So, you are saying that only you can stop it?" The man nodded his head. H1 Dong-soo inwardly clicked his tongue. This guy's gone off the deep end. It wasn't that hard to understand, though, if this man had been truly trapped inside a dungeon for 10 years. Or, alternatively, there had been some kind of an error, a mistake, during the process of the monster trying to copy a human's memories and consequently, its brain had melted somewhat. He opened the man's case file. "Your name is Seong-il H1. The photo supplied certainly matched the man's face. Rather than 10 years, though, it's like only a couple of weeks, maybe months, have passed by instead." However, H1 Dong-soo decided not to mind it. He heard that high-ranked hunters could even skirt past the aging process. "Your records as a hunter look pretty good. You could have earned quite a lot of money these days." Seong-il H1 didn't respond to that. Back then, there was no proper system of hunters in place. Hell, there wasn't a ranking system for hunters, even. H1 Dong-soo began reading the file. "Your spouse, Park Jae-hai. 2 children. The son's name is..." As he read down the names of the children with no emotion on his face, H1 Dong-soo's eyes opened up slightly wider for a moment. "Seong Jin-woo." But it only lasted for a truly brief second. H1 Dong-soo did his best to remain calm and continued on. "Seong Jin-woo. And the name of your daughter is Seong Jin-ah. Okay, next." "It happened, then." "Wait." Before H1 Dong-soo could flip to the next page, Seong-il H1 stopped him. H1 Dong-soo raised his head, and he found Seong-il H1's glare had become as cold as his own. "Why did you emit a murderous intent when mentioning the name of my son?" "I told you that I'll be the one asking questions. I'll have to hear your answer first." "What if I'm not interested in answering you? I'll use force if necessary." Seong-il H1's eyes began gleaming coldly. He didn't even show any hints of backing down, which prompted H1 Dong-soo to smirk deeply. "I got it. So, you were a monster, then?" How dare a measly little monster threaten a hunter? Deputy Director, this guy is a monster. Evacuate immediately, because he might start attacking very soon. What? Hold on. People panicking beyond the one-way mirror quickly ran out of the room. And soon, a loud wail of a siren resounded within the building. Meanwhile, a silver light began emanating from Hwang Dong-soo's hands. I'm planning to visit South Korea soon. After getting ready, Hwang Dong-soo threw an insidious smile at Seong-il Hwan. So, what last words from his father should I deliver to your son? Jin-woo headed to the Daesung Tower. It sure is really big. Trying to look up at the top of this 100-floor tall skyscraper from nearby made his neck hurt. He made his way to an area with not much foot traffic and pulled out the key to the demon's castle from his inventory. It was a long, slender, golden key. At a casual glance, it even resembled a fancy decorative item. No one's around me, right? After scanning his surroundings, Jin-woo nodded his head. Let's enter from here. The giant tower enveloped in flames, the demon's castle, replacing the Daesung Tower, filled up his entire view. The thing was, though, humans were supposedly capable of quickly adapting to their situations. Well, it's not as bad as the first time. For sure, he didn't feel as nervous as the first time he saw the demon's castle. No, maybe it's because I have leveled up sufficiently enough. Jin-woo stored the key to the demon's castle in his inventory, and summoned an ash-colored key instead. Rarity A. Type Key. The key to unlock the gates of the demon's castle can be acquired only after killing the gatekeeper. It was the key he got after killing the gatekeeper, the Cerberus. Back then, he didn't even dare to use it after getting almost bitten to death by the Cerberus, but now, he could use it. Slam. Jin-woo was flustered next. He had had his perception expanded to the max, yet he couldn't sense a single presence of monsters from beyond the castle gates. There are no monsters. Jin-woo had been worried about precisely the opposite situation happening to him. He had even thought about going through a special training by deliberately entering the penalty zone to fight against those desert centipedes or whatever, in case monsters crazily rushed out as soon as the castle gate opened up. But what the hell? What the hell was the meaning of this? All his efforts so far seemed to be in vain. The interior was utterly devoid of any life. A new quest, is it? It wasn't a daily quest. Well, it'd be strange if it was, since Jin-woo made sure to complete the daily quest and pocketed the rewards before coming here. Demons are everywhere within the demon's castle. Kill the demons and collect their souls to receive special rewards. One soul can be collected from a single demon, but on higher floors, there are demons with multiple souls. Quest generation condition. Entry into the demon's castle. Quest clear condition. Collect 10,000 souls. Rewards. 1. Any one item available in the store. 2. Plus 20 bonus stat points. 3. An unknown reward. 20 bonus stat points. That was the very first thing that attracted Jin-woo's attention. The stat points. I can raise my intelligence by 20 points. A smile instinctively formed on his face. He'd been feeling his lack of MP for quite some time now. I need lots of mana if the shadow soldiers need to regenerate. Gulp. He was salivating already. Not only that, can I really choose anything? Jin-woo recalled those ultra-expensive items he saw in the store's menu. I definitely saw. There were some S-rarity items that cost billions, hell, even tens of billions there. Well, those billions weren't the real-world currency but gold that only existed within the system, though. Still, just how amazing was this? The night killer he'd been using so nicely until now cost only 3 million gold. A 3 million B rarity item already possesses this high quality and attack power, so just what will those costing billions be like? His curiosity had been stoked for sure. Never mind the mystery third reward. Just from looking at those 2 rewards alone, he knew right away that he couldn't let this quest slip through his fingers. Inside of the castle was a ruined city. Quite unexpectedly, it was a field-type dungeon. What is this place? Is this Seoul? If everyone in Seoul died and 100 years had passed by, would the city look like this? I never expected it to be a field-type dungeon, though. Not only that, a dungeon created to look like the metropolis of Seoul. This was the kind of scale that utterly disallowed any comparison to other instant dungeons that were based around a special location such as subway stations or department stores. Jin-woo's eyes narrowed to a slit. So, where should I go now? Where should be his destination? Monsters with smallish physical sizes began creeping out from the gaps of ruined buildings, one by one. Jin-woo immediately recognized what they were from the dark red name floating above their heads. They look like. These creatures reminded him of gargoyles, but without wings. Seeing them, the corners of Jin-woo's lips arched up. The Baruka's dagger pierced deeply into the forehead of one of the demons. The moment the demon's attention had shifted to the one with the dagger stuck to its forehead, Jin Woo rapidly approached another one to separate its head from its body. This one also gave him 100 EXP, and I need 60,000 experience points. If he hunted down 600 low-ranked demons, then he'd get to raise his level. The remaining demons were taken care of in the blink of an eye. He had collected 8 souls, and the experience points earned were 800. Hey, this is not too bad. And they said that the journey of 1,000 miles started with the first step. Jin Woo's eyes began sparkling brightly as he began searching for his next prey. Inside the office of the White Tiger Guild's guild master, Baek Yun-ho was browsing through several documents he had been neglecting in the past few days because of his busy schedule. Beep. He picked the phone up after hearing that beep. Master, Min Byung-gu Hunter Nim wishes to speak to you. What should I do, sir? Let him through. Yes, sir. A short while later, a familiar voice came from the phone's speaker. Baek Hyung, why did you switch your mobile off? Baek Yun-ho spat out a long sigh. Because of the DMN reporters. I was thinking of being out of the public's eye until this whole thing dies down. Oh, that. The Red Gate incident. Yeah, I saw the news here in Japan, too. Hyung, I had no idea that you were that photogenic, you know. Stop riling me up, man. I'm not in the mood to kid around. If I find out just who leaked it to the media, I'm gonna. Hyung, don't sweat over it too much. The whole thing's gonna get buried soon. Anyway, you see, there is going to be bigger news soon. Big news, is it? From Japan. Yes, this is going to be a bigger issue than you can imagine. You'll most likely hear about it soon in Korea, too. What happened? About a week ago, the Japanese Hunters Association secretly contacted several of Korea's large guilds. They said that they needed advice from the Korean hunters. And so, 2 days after that, a few of Korea's elite hunters traveled to Japan. The hunter Min Byung-gu was one of them. Baek Yun-ho had been curious about that matter for a while now. Stop building up the suspense and tell me what happened already. This was the first time the Japs have asked for advice from us. What made them do that? What did those prideful beastards want? Baek Hyung, I'm sure you still remember the ants of Jeju Island. Yes, 4 years ago, a rank S gate opened up on the island of Jeju. Ants came out of there. There had been 3 separate subjugation operations since then, and all of them ended in failure. In the end, the Korean government gave up on the island, and it was now a barren land ruled by monsters. How could I forget? I nearly died back then. Well, looks like there's been some kind of a mutation. A mutation, is it? But what does it matter to us? Aren't they just going to fight among themselves while being confined to that island? Well, the thing is, the voice coming from the phone sounded rather troubled. The Japs found a corpse of a winged ant on the coast of Japan, actually. For the next 2 hours, he madly hunted down every low-ranked demon he could find. Afterwards, Jin Woo confirmed the number of souls he managed to collect. He had now completed about 3% of the quest. If he could continue hunting at this speed, then according to his calculations, he could level up in another 2 hours. His current level was 61. In the past, he needed experience points from 9 rank C dungeons in order to level up from 60 to 61. And the time spent was around 2 days, too. But here, he could already think about leveling up only after 4 hours. This is crazy. A bright smile formed on Jin Woo's face as he collected the loot. Their horns come out almost all the time, don't they? Rarity, none. Type, miscellaneous. 2 horns attached to the head of a low-ranked demon. Demons' horns are used as base ingredients for high-grade magic spells and therefore can be sold at a high price. What's this? Rarity. Type, a permit allowing you to enter the 2nd floor of the demon's castle. Can only be used on the 1st floor transfer magic circle. It was a document scroll, tightly rolled up. An entry permit. When he unfurled it and took a look, he found all sorts of undecipherable drawings and letters adorning its surface. In the end, the only thing that helped him understand its purpose was the item explanation. Jin Woo's wandering gaze stopped at the pillar of light piercing the sky. Well, that has to be it. Getting there was his initial goal. But his attention got robbed by the hunting of the low-ranked demons, and before he knew it, he had moved further away from his destination than before. Should I head there now? He thought that this might be a good time to think about heading there. Also, he had hunted down all of the low-ranked demons nearby, too. Jin Woo grinned brightly. Summon. The shadow soldiers stored inside his shadows via the shadow storage skill didn't require any chanting or whatever to summon them, unlike when he was trying to extract shadows. In front of Jin Woo, the giant beast soldier extracted from the leader of the Ice Bear pack appeared silently. growl, and it was a giant monsterish bear standing on its hind legs. It was as large as a house, but to Jinwoo, it was not much different from a mild-mannered lovable puppy. Get down, growl. When the shadow beast soldier laid down on the ground, Jinwoo lightly jumped on top of its back. Giddy up. As soon as Jinwoo lightly tapped the side of the beast with his leg, the shadow creature rushed towards the pillar of light with a frightening turn of speed. Thud, 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 thud. The massive creature also possessed incredible agility as well, and before long, the distance between him and the destination rapidly closed up. Of course, they still encountered obstructions every now and then. Roar. One thunderous swipe from the beast soldier, and the situation normalized right away. Ho-oh. Jinwoo formed a deeply impressed expression. I only decided to ride it for fun, but isn't this actually pretty cool? Thinking that he should utilize this means of transportation often from now on, he even named his new ride right there, and then, from now on, your name shall be Tank. How many floors are there? Of course, there was no reply. Fine, let's go up, then. Jinwoo spoke up. Second floor. Jinwoo summoned the scroll as per the instruction. As soon as it appeared, it dissolved into the light. So that's how it works. As it turned out, this whole thing was just an elevator. The moment he realized what this pillar of light actually was, Jinwoo was immediately transferred to the second floor, along with the blinding explosion of light. Second floor, third, fourth, and eventually the 27th floor. That was the result of grinding for 2 days straight. He told Jin-ah, his little sister, that he'd be on a week-long trip. I have 5 more days. Considering his gradually increasing clearing speed, he began to think that it might be doable to get to what he assumed to be the last floor, the 100th floor, within the next 5 days. Maybe even sooner than that. Jinwoo took a look at his surroundings. It was still a ruined city. I can't tell which city this floor is based on anymore. Every floor was modeled off on a different city. However, the higher he climbed, the state of destruction the city was in got worse and worse. And on this 27th floor, he found it hard to tell whether this place used to be a city or not. Over 2,100, is it? Meaning, he had hunted down over 1,000 demons in a day. He had killed quite a lot during the last 2 days, that's for sure. It was still a long way off from the goal of 10,000 souls, but he was betting on the demons of the upper floors that allegedly possessed multiple souls. Right, getting to higher floors should remain as my priority. Yoo Jin-ho entered a luxurious traditional Korean restaurant with a determined face. He chose this place after taking into account his father's taste. Has the chairman arrived yet? Yes, he's waiting for you. He was guided to the private room where his father, Yoo Myung-han, was waiting for him. The traditional sliding paper door was opened and immediately, Yoo Jin-ho's nervousness increased by several folds after seeing his father's face. You wish to run the Yoojin Guild, is that right? That's correct. It was at this point that a hint of a dilemma, alongside the emotion of shock, appeared on Yoo Myung-han's face. To think that father is pondering between me and my older brother. Yoo Jin-ho was genuinely moved inside. The fact that his father was thinking about this matter was a big win for Yoo Jin-ho. If it was in the past, he'd be satisfied with this much. However, he had no desire whatsoever to back off now. As you know already, father, giving the position of the guild master to an outsider carries too much risk. Enough. Yoo Myung-han raised his hand. At the same time, Yoo Jin-ho's mouth stopped moving. Father's enough was one of the most absolute commands that no one in the Yoo household could go against. There is someone I want you to meet. Pardon me. Yoo Jin-ho's eyes went round at that. He was the one who called and asked for this meeting, yet his father wanted to introduce him to someone. Who could it be? Just as Yoo Jin-ho's curiosity piqued, the door opposite to the one he used to enter the room slid open. Hello there. Was he in the late 20s or early 30s? A man around that age group awkwardly greeted Yoo Jin-ho as he entered the room. Who was this man? Yoo Jin-ho couldn't recognize this man at all. When Yoo Myung-han signaled with his chin, this unknown man settled down next to him. This here is Hunter Go Myung-hwan. Go Myung-hwan. Yoo Jin-ho tilted his head. He had never heard of this name before. Father nodded his head as if he had expected this already and continued on. He is one of the survivors from the White Tiger Guild's Red Gate incident, the one that's been making so much noise lately. The Red Gate. Why was the story of the Red Gate brought up here, out of the blue? Since the incident had been talked about non-stop in mass media, even Yoo Jin-ho knew what had happened. But this timing was suspiciously coincidental, and so he found it difficult to figure out where his father was going with this. And this man here, a man who was supposed to be a survivor of that incident. Why did the survivor that the media was madly scrambling over to find appear here? Yoo Jin-ho's curiosity continued to balloon greatly. Mr. Hunter. Yes, Chairman. Please inform my son who was there besides the White Tiger Guild's new recruits on that day. Understood. Go Myung-hwan's stare now was directed to Yu Jin-ho. There was a young female hunter who looked to be a high schooler, and a young female hunter. Even then, Yu Jin-ho couldn't imagine just whose name would pop out from Go Myung-hwan's lips. And Mr. Seong Jin-woo. Yu Jin-ho thought that he could hear his own heart fall to the pit of his stomach. Hyung-nim was there at the Red Gate incident. What was going on here? He was already feeling quite confused, but now, his thought process devolved into an even more complicated mess. In the middle of his confusion, he suddenly remembered something. Wait, now that I think about it, a few days ago, Hyung-nim was conversing with such familiarity with Han Song-yi, someone whom he didn't even share a casual greeting before that day. Do you still remember the name of that female hunter, by any chance? It was Miss Han Song-yi. How can this be? Yu Jin-ho's jaw dropped to the floor. To think there was such a secret to the mysterious relationship between those two people. Wait, if that's the case, then the identity of the potential helper the news outlets were talking about was. As if he knew what Yu Jin-ho was about to ask, Go Myung-hwan quickly confirmed the truth. We, the members of the White Tiger Guild and Miss Han Song-yi, could escape from the Red Gate all safe and sound thanks to Mr. Seong Jin-woo. Hyung-nim, just what did you do in there? Yu Jin-ho formed an expression comprised of half surprise and half joy. Yu Jin-ho's eyes twinkled as he listened. At first, everyone was taken back somewhat, after learning that a pair of Ranky hunters were coming to observe the new recruit training process. But then, Go Myung-hwan began describing what happened that day with a hyped-up voice reminiscent of a little kid proudly showing off to a friend the brand new toy he got as a gift. However, he did what to a Ranka hunter. Go Myung-hwan wasn't the only overexcited person in the room. Exactly. With his palm, he went like, paw. He smacked the back of Kim Cheol's head, and as he listened to the exploits of Hyung-nim, Yu Jin-ho's heart beat faster as if he was there, experiencing everything personally. I really thought that we'd die for sure when dozens of ice elves showed up. But then again, was he paying too close an attention to the story? Time flew by really quickly. The definitely not short story of that day's events was finally coming to its end. The excited Go Myung-hwan's voice became louder. So, what I'm saying is, this whole thing is just too unfair. Mr. Seong Jin-woo saved our essays back there. He's my life's savior. But then, I'm not supposed to reveal the existence of Mr. Seong Jin-woo. I find it difficult to accept the decision of the White Tiger Guild. However, Chairman Yu has given me a call out of the blue, and so, here I am. It was at this point that Yu Myung-han stopped Go Myung-hwan in a dignified manner. Go Myung-hwan embarrassedly lowered his head. Yu Myung-han's stare then shifted over to his son, Yu Jin-ho. In the process of investigating more about Hunter Seong Jin-woo, a name that I never expected to hear popped up. At the ends of Yu Myung-han's pointing finger, his index finger pointed to a piece of paper with Yu Jin-ho's name written on it. And it was none other than the raid records Yu Jin-ho handed over to his father. I'm busted. The truth about Hyung-nim helping him out during the process of acquiring his guild master license was now out in the open. Yu Jin-ho's expression hardened. Hunter Seong Jin-woo aided you greatly during your attempt to earn the guild master license. Do you acknowledge this fact? Yes, father. In the past, being subjected to that withering glare, Yu Jin-ho would lose all strength in his legs. However, he couldn't give up like this. For the first time ever, Yu Jin-ho summoned his courage in front of his father. He lowered his head and raised his voice. Can you entrust the Yujin Guild to me, father? I will. At that refreshingly simple answer, Yu Jin-ho hurriedly raised his head. I shall entrust the Yujin Guild to you. But why? Didn't you say it yourself? It is too risky to entrust the guild to an outsider. With you here, is there a reason to take on that risk now? But I tried to deceive you, father. You thought I'd scold you and kick you out because of that. What was going on here? Yu Jin-ho thought that his father was smiling, for some reason. But Yu Myung-han's lips would always remain in a straight line, no matter what the occasion was. So, how come? However, I have a condition. Yes, father, this Hunter Seong Jin-woo. Can you bring him over to Yujin? Yu Jin-ho's eyes opened wider. The light within Yu Myung-han's eyes flickered a little just then. But that didn't last for long. That's correct. Yu Jin-ho became speechless, then groaned. Even a snot-nosed brat would know that now was the right time to confidently say something in order to leave behind a positive impression. However, the one they were talking about was none other than Hyung-nim. Yu Jin-ho could ask, sure, but he wasn't confident of anything else besides. So, he replied honestly, I can't be certain. Very good. There is no meaning if the challenge is too easy for you. The chairman Yu Myung-han took a sip of water and lightly wiped the corners of his lips with a handkerchief. If you fail, I shall hand over the guild to your brother. So, how about it? Will you accept? This boy wanted Eugen Guild. He suspected something was up when they agreed to meet today, but he didn't expect his son to be this daring. Indeed, a tiger's cub is still a tiger at the end of the day. The smile finally began to spread on Yu Myung-han's lips. 48, 49, 50. With a frightening clearing speed, Jin-woo climbed up the floors. He didn't feel tired at all when looking at the total experience points and the accumulated number of souls climbing up higher every time he hunted a monster down. He had procured the important entry permit for the 51st floor a long time ago. So, the only thing remaining was to get to the floor transfer magic circle and go upstairs. But Jin-woo's sight shifted towards the pillar of light. More specifically, a short distance in front of that pillar, and a massive demon, plus scores of high-ranked demons, were standing there, waiting. Jin-woo raised his sight up higher, and he could see the giant demon's name, floating in the air in a deep crimson hue. That thing consisted of a huge mess of fatty flesh that must have weighed dozens of tons. No, maybe even several hundred, instead. And then, the massive club this thing was holding in hand looked rather horrifying as well. However, a smile was etched on Jin-woo's face. So, that's the mid-boss of this place, huh? He held only the nicest memories of the bosses found inside the instant dungeons. They all gave him plenty of experience points as well as wonderful items, compared to the boss-level monsters found in regular dungeons that required lots of hard work to kill but little reward to show for it. These boss monsters of instant dungeons were more like boxes of gifts, all nicely wrapped up. So, then, what items would that guy cough up? Gulp. Jin-woo smiled brightly and began drooling. Shadow soldiers were summoned behind Jin-woo. Not just the regular foot soldiers, but also the magic soldiers, the beast soldiers, as well as the two knights, too. And in front of them stood Jin-woo. The two knights strode forward and stood on either side of him. Jin-woo took a glance at Ygritte to his right, and Iron to his left, and a grin formed on his lips. Feels so reassuring. Even though this was his own skill, the fact that he had comrades watching his back helped greatly to calm his mind. However, still, it's a bit too much to go with a frontal assault, isn't it? The whole thing looked kinda dangerous. And that was all thanks to that wooden-looking club held tight in Vulcan's grip. It's just unbelievable that a tree that big actually existed, right? He guessed from the size of Vulcan and the wooden club that one swing from the demon would be enough to wipe away his entire platoon. Jin-woo ordered his magic soldiers to initiate the assault first. Use the ranged attacks to summon Vulcan's lackeys over here first, and I'll fight that big guy lumbering along at the rear. It was a simple enough plan to carry out. Now, when Jin-woo gave his signal, flames flew out from the hands of the magic soldiers. The flames exploded near the subordinates of Vulcan, signaling the beginning of the operation. The warning beeps resounded out in his head at a frightening pace, and at the same time, Vulcan and its lackeys all turned their heads towards Jin-woo and his army. Alright, he succeeded in drawing their attention. In order to hit Vulcan coming up from the lackey's rear without getting discovered, Jin-woo activated stealth and hid himself. Everything seemed to be unfolding according to plan. That's what he thought, but then, thud, 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 thud. Vulcan broke his expectation and bolted forward like a streak of lightning. What the hell? What is up with that movement? It's like I'm looking at video footage sped up several times. Quite literally, in the blink of an eye, Vulcan had ran past its lackeys and arrived before the shadow soldiers. Oh crap. Jin-woo's eyes widened considerably. This demon with a huge, mountain-sized body mass managed to exceed his imaginations. Vulcan lifted the club up high. Just before the club pointing to the sky fell down on the defenseless magic soldiers, Iron jumped out of nowhere and raised his black shield. Whoosh. The attack was defended against somehow, but both arms of Iron were shattered into pieces. The sturdiest, toughest among the shadow soldiers couldn't withstand a single attack and was rendered unable to fight any further. Scatter. The shattered pieces of Iron's arms fell to the ground and scattered away, perhaps finding its previous attack not to its liking. Vulcan tilted its head this way and that, while staring deeply at its club. But that was only for a brief period. The beastard slammed down with the club once more. Iron, who had lost all means to defend himself, as well as the magic soldiers behind him, were crushed to oblivion next. Crack. Witnessing that event unfold, something inside Jin-woo loudly snapped into two. This son of a BTCH dares to. Jin-woo bit his lower lip. What he did next wasn't because his head told him to do it. When he regained his senses, he was already in midair, leaping towards Vulcan. His target was already set, and that would be that surprisingly beady little head attached atop the mountainous body. Jinwoo twisted his body in mid-air. The muscles of his shoulder and the arm cocked rearward ballooned up. When he focused all his might on his clenched right fist, stealth came undone automatically. Belatedly, Vulcan discovered Jinwoo. Too bad. Jinwoo's fist was not slow enough for the giant monster to dodge when it was already near its nose. His fist punched out like a bullet and slammed into the side of Vulcan's face. Vulcan was flung away. The giant demon rolled away on the ground for a long time, before crashing into the skeletal remains of a building and came